as well as a political commentator. Thank you, Steve, for coming in. We also have Felix Sumba, who's a biblical scholar, as well as a Professor Kioko Ireri, who's a political communication expert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. A lot has happened since last night at about 10 p.m. when Wafula Chebukati announced the results. I think we can start with a round of comments on over the things that we have seen happening since last night in the country. I'll start with you, Prof.
First of all, I would like to applaud all the Kenyans for turning up in huge numbers and contributing to the growth of our democracy. But what I would like to say is also regarding the president-elect, his speech. I think he was very magnanimous in his victory, and he called upon all the Kenyans and extended olive branch to the opposition principles and their followers that we need to have a unified country. They're going to work together. I think that was very reasonable and a very good thing if we have to keep this country together based on the fact that there were so many divisions before the elections, during the elections, and still those divisions are there. We need to heal them. We need to narrow the divisions because we are one country moving forward. Okay. But above all, whatever happened is a step forward in the growth of our democracy.
Felix, what have you picked out in this whole election period?
The election period has been a bit of a replication of our history, a bit. Excellent turnout for voting, excellent balloting, problems in tallying, problems in giving the final results, build-up of tensions, skirmishes, a bit of denial in
it's
the
like
Kenyan.
The same script,
yeah, it's the same script, different years, different clothes, and different presenters, but the same script a bit. But I'm hoping that this time we'll have the boldness and courage as Kenyans not to close our eyes, but to start having conversations that will truly move us forward. I don't subscribe to this accept and move on. You don't tell a mourner when to stop mourning. You don't tell a mourner how to mourn. I think that is a bit in bad taste. And I think as a country, I hope we find the courage to start properly moving on. Yes.
Steve, young people have been on the social media, and young people are often the ones used to propagate violence in this country, especially after the kind of elections we always have. What can you say?
Wow. First and foremost, I want to commend Kenyans for exercising peace during this electioneering period. And like you've said, young people are always in the forefront when it comes to matters of elections, and especially when now we have these rogue politicians who want to channel the energy of young people in wrong directions. And I'm glad to say that we've not seen much of this at this particular time, though we've seen in social media, we've had in the media there's a bit of tension in some parts of the country. And I'm hoping that the country is going to come together and we have cohesion and just move forward. Yesterday, you had the president-elect saying that he was going to extend a hand of friendship to the opposition and other parties that lost in these elections, and just come up with a model of working together for the betterment of this country. I'm just hoping that he was honest in his remarks and that it's not just going to end there, but there's going to be some action toward that end.
You've mentioned something very important, that is Felix, of course, about the narrative of accept and move on. We've already seen it being propagated, and you say that there are conversations that we seriously need to get into if we move on as a country. What are these conversations?
I think we need to acknowledge who we are as a people. I heard one politician say that we were divided during the election process. Now it's time to come together. No, it's not. We were divided long way before. We still are. The coming together is just for the convenience of a few politicians. It's never really a coming together as a people. And I think it's time we stop digging the hole. We can't get out of a hole by digging. The thin layer of soil that we get will not fill up that hole. You know, we are digging holes and we're just exchanging partners. We're continuing to exchange new hearts based on old hearts. And we are deluding ourselves that when we keep quiet and move on, perhaps this ghost beneath the bed will just vanish. It's still there. It's still there. I look, post-election violence, political problems have been in there since 1991. Somebody estimated that between 1991 and 1997, when we had the second multi-party election, we had close to 10,000 people killed. Nobody talks about it. Our narrative about Kenya has been so locked on 2007, and even then, we're not really dealing with it. You cannot hide these skeletons. We cannot run away from them. Like my brother said, I hope for honesty, diligence, substantive engagement across the board, not just politicians. And I would even say I hold very little expectations of our politicians. Their political schooling is to make use of what is available to them. What is available to them? Tribal mobilization. So if we want to move on as a people, then we need to take it upon ourselves. When you say it's a democracy, it's the power of the people who then decide what happens. Can we take it up upon ourselves and do that? Because I have friends from across the board who've suffered throughout this many post-election violence. So they're wondering now, the politician is now telling me who my enemy is today, then he'll tell me tomorrow who my enemy is going to be, and still the land I lost has never come back. My child cannot travel across the country peacefully. Just the other day, this bus we're talking about being attacked in Kisumu. Those people are going, I suspect, to a funeral. They've traveled all the way from Nairobi to Western Kenya to attend a funeral, and they're being attacked. Why? Why? Can we look at this and try to move forward?
Prof, do you agree that for so many years we're not dealing with our issues as Kenyans, but sweeping them under the carpet, like Felix is saying?
Yeah, I'm going to agree that we do forget very fast what has happened, and that's why I believe one of the biggest tasks the president-elect has is to unify this country. He has a big challenge to make sure he leaves a legacy where all Kenyans love each other, respect each other, and this could start by the government is going to form. Let the government reflect Kenya. Because I think that is one of the major accusations which has been pendled around for so long, that the government appears as if it is only for two communities. I would like to see a government which is a reflection of the Kenyan population.
We know that there's something still pending. For a few hours now, we've really not heard from the opposition, and more than 6 million people are still not satisfied with the manner in which this election was conducted. And most likely, they're waiting to hear what the NASA principals will say, if at all this country is to move forward. For you, Steve, if the opposition was to come out now and speak, what would you expect to come out of their address?
I know the Right Honorable Raila Odinga means good for this country, just like any other leader of his caliber. And like he said, I think on the 9th, in one of the press conferences he held, he said that he called his supporters to be peaceful and calm, and yes, and embrace unity as a nation. And so I'm expecting the same from him when he'll be addressing the nation, because I'm sure he's going to be doing that real soon, because his supporters are really eager to hear about what their leader is going to be saying. Yes, but I know he feels aggrieved. He feels his concerns were not really addressed by IEBC, like you had yesterday, the senior counsel Orengo saying, together with Mudavadi, that some of the concerns they addressed with IEBC yesterday were not addressed, despite the fact that they were given an audience. And so I know let's just wait and see and hear what's going to come from him when he speaks.
Felix.
I think everybody expected one of three things to happen with the reaction from NASA. One, that they would either accept the results. Two, they would take the matter to court. Or three, they would call for street action, as most people think. I was telling some friends on the day of the election that there is also another possibility, which I think is what they've gone for, just to say we are unhappy with this, but there's nothing we're going to do. That's it. Now, the problem is their people are waiting for direction. I think that's what remains to be heard. Apart from appealing to them to speak to their provinces and to call for calm and peace, It's a tough place to be. It's really a tough place to be, to ask the Prime Minister to speak at a national level when he's also still processing the disappointment he's feeling. I think we need to put a human face to it and hope that somehow the people of NASA will find the courage to do so. But the issues that they are having to deal with are weighty. We have to deal with that also.
Whatever he says, whatever he comes out and says, do you think it will in any way help with this narrative of national healing?
I don't think it will, because the issue is he might bring calm for now. You know, you take a painkiller, you get calm. You've not cured the cancer, and that's a deeper issue. That's a deeper issue. So for now, it might be time for pain medicine. We probably have to concede that. But the deeper issues require surgery, require that we go under the blade. And I think that's what we are looking forward to, hopefully, after this election. A real engagement. Yeah. But it's a puzzle as to what the Prime Minister and the people of NASA will do. It remains a puzzle to many people.
All right. Yeah. I would want us to cut it short for a bit. I understand we currently have a briefing live at the Serena Hotel from the Kenya eminent persons with regard to this particular election and the situation in the country currently. Let's just cross over there live and listen in.
The chairman. Okay. And Alice, perhaps for the benefit of those who may not know part of the panel, we'd just like to introduce the Major General retired Hezron Murunga. He's part of our group and has been part of the initiative that we have been trying to broker peace since 2007, and has been involved in that initiative. Here we have Florence Payai. Florence has been a consultant in many of these peace-making efforts and so on, and she's very well known. My name is Kibera. I have been part of the media for the last quarter of a century, but I'm also part of this group, and I'm the vice chair of our group. We have here our decorated general, Lieutenant General, retired Daniel Opande. Those of you who may not know, Daniel Opande was a commander of some of the peacekeeping forces in Liberia and all those West African countries in many parts of the world, not only here, but other parts of the world. So in terms of understanding the conflicts and what conflict can bring about, I think he has a lot of knowledge in that. We have Alice Derito. Alice Derito has also been involved in a lot of peace initiatives for a long, long time, not only in Kenya, but around the continent. Yes. And she's part of our group. She's currently based in Nigeria. That's where she's working. And Alban Mwenda, you know him. He's from the corporate world. He's been in business world, worked previously with EABL, Kenya Airways, and also a respected elder from the Coast Province.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you are going to.
If you need any of these, you're most welcome.
We will give them. Mm-hmm. We'll give them.
Just there, we've gotten it quite short as they're ending, the Kenya eminent persons. Of course, we will be giving you more details about what they have said in that particular briefing. That we were bringing you that live from the Serena Hotel here in Nairobi. But let's just get back to the conversation here on some of the things that have cropped up during this particular election. Looking at, you seem like you want to say something, Steve?
Yes, I just wanted to add something to what my fellow panelists just said. And it's about, I know in this election we had winners and losers. And I think for those who are on the winning side, it's good that we exercise our celebrations with a lot of humility and be gracious enough to just, so that we don't create tension on the other side of the citizens who lost in these elections. Yeah.
But being a youth leader, if you were to get into that very conversation, what would you tell young people?
I would tell young people to remain peaceful. I know there are issues, but we can always address issues non-violently. We don't need to react to issues, to go to the streets, throw stones and stuff like that. But I believe that there are non-violent ways that we can address some of these issues that might have, occur during this electioneering period.
Okay.
Yes.
There's something I would really want my panelists to comment on, and that is the Election Observer Group ELOG has said the turnout in the just concluded election was historical, but said they will speak later with regard to whether the election was conducted properly by the IEBC. Here's the ELOG chairperson, Regina Opondo, and FIDE chairperson, Josephine Mongare. Let's take a look.
To take our work a little bit further was we also went and asked our observers to collect the Form 34A. So they took photos, which they also sent in so that we could also check our own information to make sure that we were okay. What we've done is with the Form 34As that we have collected, we've also put them up on our website. So if you go to elog.or.ke, you can see photos of the forms that we have collected. So not that other people have collected, but the ones that we have collected. And so those are available for anybody to have a look at and make their own comparisons and do work with further. On Gabrielle's question, we didn't include CCM, but yes, if we had, it might increase the number or decrease the number. We can't say for sure because we didn't include them. What we were doing was trying to follow a pattern from 2013, and although 2013 they were in different coalitions, we still looked at those particular parties. So we wanted to be able to compare our results for this year to 2013, so we just stuck to the same group of parties. On the ungazetted polling stations, we picked the sample. We didn't have any, did we? No. We did not have any, from our sample, we did not have any in these ungazetted polling stations, so we don't have anything to report particularly on that. And we can provide the list of the polling stations where our observers were, so that you can also have a look at that. Mule will speak to the issue of the variation because it's a statistical question, and I'm not the best. But, however, oh, okay.
I think it's important for the media to understand our PVT is a different system from the system of IEBC. It was hosted in our offices. We were using our own internal ICT framework, and we were not in any way linked with IEBC. Now, our sample specimen is 1,692. The sample specimen for IEBC is 40,000. We used the Form 34As that we received from 1,692 polling centers. So it is not possible for us to have obtained this consistent variation from the sample, because if you look at our sample, it's limited to a number of stations. And our system is totally removed from IBC. It is hosted in our offices.
Our reporter Betty Njeru covered that particular press briefing for us. She now joins us live from our city center studios with more updates. Betty, what really could you pick out from that particular briefing, even though they say that they will give a more comprehensive address later on in the week?
Well, good afternoon, Akisa. There was a press briefing conducted earlier by the Election Observation Group chaired by Regina Opondo, and they did say that they covered 1,692 polling stations across all 47 counties. Now, key findings among their preliminary results, really something that came out quite clearly was that the polling stations were open. 53% of the polling stations were opened on time, and again, the high number of voter turnout. Now, something else that also seemed to come out quite clearly was the need for a voter education. For instance, a scenario that was played out earlier in the northern parts of the country where there seemed to be less voter education. More women and persons with disability were being helped to vote, which also spilled out to the high number of rejected voters, and spoiled votes. But Akisa, by and large, the ELOG concluded that this was an improvement of the general election from 2013, given that the BVR kits and the KIMS integrated system and the electronic system failed back then. And also ELOG, Regina Opondo, the chair of ELOG, did mention that the earlier tabulation of results did match with those of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission released officially yesterday. Akisa.
All right, Betty, thank you for that update. Betty Njeru, our reporter there, joining us from the city center studios. She is just from that press briefing by ILOG. And of course, in our subsequent bulletins, we get more details on the same. Let's get back to the conversation here with my panelists. What comes out of that particular briefing is that the voter turnout this time round was by and large impressive as compared to the other years. But during the campaign period, there was also a narrative that there will be voter apathy because of some of the things Kenyans had to go through over the past years. Prof, where do we draw the line? What do you think happened between us saying that there has been a high cost of living, there has been corruption, has been full-blown, the opposition did not really give Kenyans a better deal, so to speak, from the kind of reactions we got from the people and the kind of voter turnout we got in this particular election this week?
As a researcher, I don't believe in assumptions. Whatever was being talked about before the election was just assumptions, not based on any data evidence. What we should talk about is what we have now. We have seen the voter turnout was very, very high, more than what people were thinking. So whatever people were talking about, let's have hand facts and talk from there.
What could have driven the high voter turnout? What are some of the factors that might have led to that kind of turnout in this particular election?
Election is competition, and everybody wants to win. All the candidates, all the presidential candidates and their followers, they wanted to win. And with that passion and motivation to win, I think that is the driving point. You want to win.
Yes, Steve?
Yeah, maybe just to connect to what the Prof is saying. During the past 5 years, I know the government tried to do its best, and then we have this campaign period where we had NASA, Jubilee, and other presidential candidates rolling out their manifestos, and so citizens had a lot of expectation in them. That aside, we also had some pressing needs as citizens, and especially as young people. We had issues of youth unemployment. We had the issues of the economy, UNGA and stuff like that. So I think people were really ready for change, and that's why you saw there was really huge turnout, that this election was not about...
But when we say ready for change, change from what, given
how
the results came out?
I think depending on how the results came out, maybe it reflects the kind of change that people wanted. Yes.
Okay. Shortly, I'm coming back to you, Felix, in a bit. Shortly, we will be crossing over to Mombasa, where we understand that Hassan Ali Joho is yet to receive his certificate, but that will happen momentarily. Once that particular activity begins, we'll definitely be crossing there live on your split. Those are live pictures from Mombasa, where Ali Hassan Joho is expected to receive his certificate shortly. We'll be bringing you those events live from the Mombasa County Tallying Center. There had been issues or a delay with him receiving his certificate as compared to what all the other governors have done. But of course, once it begins, we will be bringing you that update. Ali Hassan Joho has managed to retain his seat as the governor of the county of Mombasa after facing very stiff competition there from former Senator Hassan Omar and Awiti Bolo. But from the results, seemingly not a very stiff competition if the numbers that we had are anything to go by. So once Ali Hassan Joho, once that activity begins of him receiving his certificate, we'll definitely be going back live to him or to that IEBC Mombasa Tallying Center shortly. But Felix, you wanted to add on what drove Kenyans to go out with such zeal to vote this time round? I
think there are two comments I'd like to make in relation to voter turnout. One is that compared to 2013, there's a drop. That leads us to look at two things. Either 2013 figures were massaged or something extra motivated the turnout in 2013. In 2017, there was voter apathy. To say there was none is because of the high numbers now would be to deny the truth 4 or 5 months ago. In pro-NASA regions, most people had given up hope of winning an election. And so they were considering not getting involved in a voting process. in the Jubilee region, the non-performance of the Jubilee government was real. They too are looking for flour like everybody else. They too are struggling with understanding the corruption that is being spoken about. That was real. So what happened? What did the politicians do to whip up their various provinces to bring the turnout up? Because that is real. That's what they did. And I think, to me, the people in NASA, like my brother said, had hope that probably there would be change. That's why they said, reluctantly, having decided not to vote, let me see if this time perhaps my vote will count. Yeah. On the other side, what really drove them? What really drove them? And I'd be very hesitant to say that I think there were appeals to the same motivations that drove the 2013 turnout. Mm-hmm. And that's what brought the turnout back up again. Mm-hmm. And so the issue of voter apathy is real. I would bet that if nothing changes in 2022, something similar will happen, either total decline, because many people have decided, why bother? If my vote doesn't count, if this is what I'm going to go through, let me just shut down, plan my holiday, visit my people country, and let's move on after I've been told who our president is. So the issue of voter apathy is real. It's just that things are very fluid around elections. So you need to be on point.
Okay. Something else interesting to note is the kind of votes that Jubilee got in perceived NASA strongholds. We see areas like in Western Kenya. We've seen areas like in Maasai Land. I'm talking about both Narok and Kajiado counties, as well as even the northeastern region that has, in the past elections, voted for the opposition. What really do you think, Prof, gave Jubilee an upper hand with this particular election and with them making inroads in NASA, perceived NASA strongholds?
One, there's something we call the incubant effect. I would not personally to have expected the president to drop in the in votes is going to receive in the NASA strongholds, because as an incubant, you have invested, and you expect to reap something out of that. So to me, we know that the Jubilee government is trying to roll out so many programs in the opposition strongholds, and I think that one give some fruits. So it's about the incubant effect. I would not expect a sitting president to just sit down and do nothing. And I think that is what happened. Number two, there is the thing about the crowd sometimes don't mean they are going to vote. And so that is why elections, in political communication, we say election is like a dance, where you go to the dance floor as a man or a lady, but it is the lady who determines who to dance with. You cannot force a lady to same thing with the elections. You can go there on the ground seeking for the votes, but it is the voters who decide who to vote for. So sometimes the numbers the crowns which we gather during the campaigns can be misleading.
So for you, the development projects, or the goodies in terms of development projects for the Jubilee government, is what gave them an upper hand in the NASA stronghold?
I do believe so.
Do you think so too, Felix?
I wouldn't. I think there might be an aspect of truth in what the professor is saying. I think the problems that have been raised by NASA regarding the development issues of Kenya take some serious engagement for you to get what they're saying. And when you complicate your message slightly, you lose a majority of the people who do not have time to follow your narrative. And I think that plays in the hand of NASA. Take, for example, the SGR. It will take somebody to listen to a proper economic analyst on development issues to understand the problems with SGR. But to the common man, I see a train.
Yes.
So what are you telling me? And that is where I think Jubilee had a slight upper hand. And then do not underplay the role of an incumbent. There are people who will simply vote because they want to be on the winning side. Yes. This somebody looks like he's already there. Why should I vote for somebody who's on the losing? There are very interesting motivations to why some people vote. And some of them can make you laugh. But I think there was a bit of an underestimation, I think, my understanding on NASA on strategy on the ground. I think there was a bit on building on the charisma and the image of the presidential candidate, rather than real strategies on the ground. I think they were counting on the charisma of the former prime minister to carry them across, and that really didn't work out.
So strategy blunder there for you? Strategy blunder? Okay, let's listen to what the president said last night, just after receiving his certificate as president-elect after that grueling campaign period, and then the election day, the poll day, and then 3 days of waiting for the results. Let's just listen to what he said while addressing the gathering at the Bomas of Kenya that acted as the national tallying center in this particular election.
Who are worthy competitors, we are not enemies. We are all citizens of one republic. As with any competition, there shall always be winners and there shall be losers, but we all belong to one great nation called Kenya. And I extend a hand of friendship, I extend a hand of cooperation, I extend a hand of partnership, knowing fully well that this country needs all of us pulling together in order for us to succeed. And Kenyans want us to succeed. So mine, like I said to my worthy competitor, especially the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, I reach out to you, I reach out to all your supporters, I reach out to all who are elected on now the opposition benches. We shall work together. We shall partner together. We shall grow together. We shall develop this country together. And we are there, ready to engage, to dialogue, to discourse together so that we can build this nation of ours together. Twashukuru Mungu, and to my fellow Kenyans, as we have always stated, elections come and go. Kenya is here to stay. And as I have said severally in all our campaign rallies, let us always remember that we are brothers and sisters.
Well, that was President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday evening or yesterday night at about 10 p.m., just after he was announced as the winner of this particular election for the presidential vote there. An announcement made by the chief returning officer, who is the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati. And that speech made last night has been seen by many to try and quell the kind of tension that has been in the country as Kenyans were waiting for these results. But there's also a question of the divisions among Kenyans. There are more than 6 million Kenyans who are not happy with this particular turnout. Do you think, Steve, this speech did anything to make Kenyans feel better, especially those who felt they had lost?
I think to some extent, it showed that the president, was ready to work with people in the opposition, and of course those who lost. And in a way, I'm sure there are those who had, their tempers high, emotions high, and maybe it reduced that, but not to a much greater extent. Like I said, I know Raila hasn't spoken, and I'm sure his speech also is something to look up to, especially for his supporters. Yes, because like I said, he has a very huge following. 6 billion is not something to ignore, and so they're really eager to hear what is going to come from him soon.
Looking at the NASA dynamics with all the 5 principles, Raila Odinga, of course, was to deliver a national vote, being a national figure in our politics. Kalonzo Musyoka also being a national leader, but hand in the Ukambani politics, being the kingpin. Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi were to deliver the Western vote, and Isaac Ruto was to deliver a good chunk of the Kalenjin vote. But that really didn't seem to happen. What does this mean about how NASA campaigned in those areas, like in the land of the Kalenjins and the entire Rift Valley region? And what does this mean for Isaac Ruto? Because it looks like a double loss for him as a former governor, if I could put it like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I think it's interesting to see the election results across the board. I think outside Western, there is this belief that there's a Western leader. I don't think Westerners have had, Western Kenya people have had a sort of uniting voice since the late Masinde Muliro. I think from my place, I'm surprised at how much the late Wamalwa Kijana is respected outside his home area. That fallacy is still there. Actually, some analysts suggested that probably the two leaders from Western should have just remained at home and campaigned there, because look at the results, there were gaps there. Isaac Ruto, I think his case is different. His case is a bit different because when given an option, people will vote for the person who's next to the seat of power. And that's where Ruto beat him. I think the more interesting battle will be when now the Moi name comes up and we have to look at Moi against Ruto. I think that will be the more interesting battle for Rift Valley. It's yet to happen. I think that the boxers warmed up, the fight was advertised, but in the end it was called off. So we were left with a lesser card challenger to come. But I think the Moi voice is what will determine, because even if Ruto was to retain the Rift Valley, in 2022, if the Moi voice goes different, then there's a good chunk of Rift Valley that goes with it.
So the Moi family is still
that fight is yet to happen. That fight is yet to happen.
The Rift
Those
Valley
people who are declaring Ruto the winner of Rift Valley, hold your horses. The fight there, the real determinant fight is yet to happen.
Of who is the kingpin
who is the kingpin of Rift Valley is yet to happen. That fight was cancelled. Let's wait and see how that goes.
So politically, what does this mean for Isaac Ruto?
I think he'll come back. I think politics, we forget very easily. We've had several people who've made their way back in the current elections.
Yes, sure.
I think he's astute enough to come back. I think he represented the devolution very well. He is among the people who stood out for that. His political party bears that name. I think he was punished for that miscalculation, but I don't think anybody would be in their right minds to write him off. No.
Prof, for you, how do you analyze the campaigns, especially in Rift Valley, and the loss for Isaac Ruto, both from delivering the Kalenjin votes and, of course, him failing to retain his seat as governor for Bomet County?
For Isaac Ruto, it was a big political gamble, which backfired miserably. But I know he's a seasoned politician, so we're going to see him going back to the drawing board and how to come back in future, especially. I know there's going to be a lot of realignment ahead of 2022 elections. So the challenge for him right now is how does he remain relevant in Kenyan politics, in Rift Valley politics? That is what will be interesting to see from him.
Quickly, I want us to go back to
I
Eldoret.
think maybe just to add a comment on that. Even though he lost, but I think his party, the Chama Mashinani party, gained in a few areas, right?
Yes, it did.
So I think, in a way, it wasn't 100% loss for him. Yes.
All right, let's see what's happening in Eldoret. Reporter Elvis Koskei now joins us live from Eldoret in Wasin Gishu County to just give us an update on the situation there right now. And of course, I understand he will be having a conversation with Bishop Cornelius Korir. Elvis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Akisa, there in studio. Indeed, I'm in